Well, I think there's one classmate that's a little closer to my age, but you know, if you don't believe that you can succeed, when I was a lot of the age of some of you, if you're under 21-ish, I didn't believe I could get a bachelor's degree, much less a master's degree, much less go on for doctoral studies. I did not believe that because I just didn't see myself that way. I was kind of mediocre in high school, didn't really, so that's why I'm still paying student loans. My brothers got free rides because they're smart and figured it out. Grew up in a different home. Basically, I did not believe that I could. I was, okay, maybe 2 years, I can do that. Oh man, bachelor's degree, that's beyond me. You know, I don't think I could go to school for 4 years and do all that. Then I got in the real world and saw, oh, I got to go to school if I'm going to do anything, whether I'm a mechanic or a plumber or whatever, I got to go for more school. So I might as well go back and get one of those cushy air-conditioned jobs. That was my thinking. Of course, then I wound up in the Army, so the cushy air-conditioning thing went out the window. But, you know, these things that we do in life are very, very contingent upon what we believe about ourselves or about other people. Okay, Dr. Leibniz divides truth up into a couple of different categories. He talks about truth of reasoning. We're going to see some repetition of this. It gets worded, things get worded a little differently. We'll look at that later. Truth of reasoning, referring to statements of truth based on reason, and truth of fact, referring to statements based on empirical data. Now, this is where that rational, and we're going to see a rational and an empirical debate come up here. And basically, rationalism, anybody able to define rationalism for me?
It's where you convince yourself of an opinion.
Well, not exactly. By definition, it's basically rationalism has to do with at least some would put it as at least some knowledge is derived by reason. It's innate. It's built in. You don't have to experience anything. All right. We have innate ideas. We can know things without experiencing them. Now, go back to the movie. Did he know something without actually experiencing it?
He knew something was amiss.
He knew something was amiss. He thought he knew all kinds of things, and in reality, it's a big dream world he lived in. All he knew was his own perception going on, but he didn't know that that's what it was. He didn't know that's what it was. There's an old German proverb, something to the effect of, it is dark at the base of a lighthouse. And it's to do with, the idea of we know, but we can't know how we know. We can't, it's how do you self-evaluate your own ability to know? How do you know? How do you know? Morpheus told us. Morpheus told us. How do we know? Philosophy by the Matrix. What about your brain? As far as we know, at least phenomenologically speaking, there's little impulses going on, right? So all of our knowledge can be explained by neurotransmitters and little chemical reactions going on. That's all you are? I mean, I'm asking. Is that all you are?
Pretty much.
This is a question that's been debated throughout centuries, so in different ways. We have more scientific ways of talking about this, but we're going to see the rational and the empirical debate has a lot to do with kind of what you're made out of. Are you strictly a biological machine? Is that all you are? Or is there something more to you? Spirit, soul, whatever you want to call that thing that people can't see that they attribute to folks having. How do you want to word that? Is there an element in which is not physiological that's part of you? Does that exist? If it doesn't, can you prove that? See, there's the problem that we're going to find. That's the problem. And that's where philosophy of science parts ways with metaphysics, and we'll talk about that later in the course. But is there something about you that is not distillable by reducing all the little molecules and stuff? Is there some part of you? Okay? Whether it lives on beyond your physical death or whether it doesn't exist at all, this is a question to ask. And philosophers have debated this, and of course Descartes, who we're going to talk about, Rene Descartes, that's really kind of what he's digging at. He just doesn't come out and say it. for Cypher. You remember the character Cypher, the guy with kind of goatee, okay, in the movie?
Traitor.
Yeah, the traitor, exactly, that guy. For him, what was reality?
Being a human. Wait, the steak thing?
Yeah, the steak thing. Yeah, he's eating that steak. Hey, I like a good steak, I have to admit, you know, eating that sloppy soup stuff, it didn't look like a good time to me. You know, sit down, eat a nice juicy steak, drink a little whatever, you know.
He didn't care what the truth was as long as his perception of the world was better.
For him, that's why I asked, which was his reality, really, for him? Where did he prefer to be?
In the better perception.
In the better perception. Even if it wasn't the physical reality, he preferred to live in dream world, right? He knew that it wasn't physically real, that it was a projected image. He chose to live in the fantasy world as opposed to living in the physically substantial world because, hey, you can enjoy yourself a little more. And I thought it was interesting. He says, I don't want to remember anything. That was interesting. He wants to feel that way. There's no guilt, no, hey, nothing to deal with that, right?
Inner conflict.
Yeah, he doesn't have to deal with that. Belief, we're defining what we regard to be true or false. Linking truth with belief can be very problematic because it allows for me to believe something and you not to believe something which violates the law of contradiction or the law of non-contradiction, however you want to term that. The law of non-contradiction. This is talking about the way we use language. If something is true, when we talk about true, let's talk about just in the way we use language first, okay? This is a little caveat, Logic 101. Now, I don't think we typically have a logic course here. It's not a real exciting class to be in, to be honest with you. I took logic as part of my philosophy studies, and not a whole lot of fun to me. But hey, it's there, somebody had to do it. The way we use language, though, it does get into that in argumentation and how we make a good argument, a good sound argument. If we make the statement, all grass is green, then we say, I have a blade of grass, therefore I have a blade of green grass, would be logical, right? I'm using a silly little analogy that we would never use, but it's just off the cuff. Okay, so that's logic. That's the way we use language. Now we're just talking about language. If we're going to use words, they need to have a meaning, right? They need to mean something. No sense in throwing words out if they don't mean anything. If they don't convey an idea in my mind to an idea in your mind, if they don't build that little bridge, then there's no point in using that. If I came in and started speaking little Greek words and throwing them at you, and what? Agathins and Mayan Helenos. What? Anybody speak Greek in here? Okay. No, okay. That means I agonize in Greek. Okay. Greek's painful to me. Okay, that's what that means. If I start throwing words out at you in some foreign language you never heard, well, that's useless. So if we're going to use words, they need to be meaningful. They need to mean something to me, and they need to mean something to you. And if they don't, then we need to define that word so that it ends up meaning the same thing. But when we talk about truth, if I say something is true, linguistically speaking, I make a statement and I say this is true. And then you say, that is not true.